All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome in. We'll allow a few minutes just for some people who are still getting off of work or getting situated to hop in. Today's session, we are doing a breakdown of a criminal procedure question from the past bar. Before we get into the thick of it, right, for those that missed yesterday's event, we had our didn't pass, now what? So check your emails. That event, we basically covered how to create a custom attack plan for yourself to gear up and get ready for another attempt. The nature of retakers, and I'm sure in here we might have people who might be on their second attempt, third attempt, fourth attempt, etc. No matter which attempt it is, the idea is that you have now direct feedback from the bar exam as to what your strengths and weaknesses are. Now, again, it could be a little skewed because, again, we know the arbitrary nature of which topics are tested and which subjects are tested, et cetera. Right. But with that said, it still gives us a little bit of an indicator of what we need to work on, both skill set wise and law wise. So that's what you really want to take into account. And again, what yesterday's session helped with how many hours do I study? How do I adjust my schedule, right? And things like that. So again, if you missed yesterday, really important, really powerful stuff to help you set yourself up for success. Again, that's available via replay. Today, we are breaking down an essay. I'm curious, right? Because we are getting more and more UBE students. We had some Texas passers for February, some DC, and some other UBE jurisdictions as well. But I'm curious how many takers are in here for UBE versus California. So just feel free to put it in the chat for me, just California or UBE. I want to see what our audience is. Who am I speaking to? Okay, UBE. Okay, California. All right. And as we get started, right, the reality is that as we go through today's session, we're actually going to focus on a California essay. This California essay is focused on criminal procedure, which is tested in both jurisdictions. And the reality is that California and UB are very similar in a lot of ways. There's just your essays are only 30 minutes as opposed to ours are an hour, right? You have a couple other subjects, but again, in large part, about 80%, 90% of the exam is the same. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Today's session is intended to be interactive. So I would love to see if we can get some cameras on to see, who I know I can call on as we go through some questions. But today is to help you do better with essays and help you see what you need to look out for. So yes, please either raise your digital hand or please turn on your camera if you can to let me know that I can call on you as we go through these exercises. So as we get started, I'm going to share screen and show you the essay that we're going to be reading. All right. Okay, I didn't see any digital hands or any cameras come on. So this is going to be a quick session if there's nobody to call on. So again, let's get some engagement going. Let me see if Zara, let me call on you. Zara, are you there?
Yes. Hi.
Okay. Awesome. How you doing, Zara?
Good, thank you.
Good. So the first thing I want to talk about as we get started with an essay is reading comprehension. And so Zara, overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel like you personally rank with reading comprehension? The ability to, in a time conditioned manner, read and process a fact pattern and feel comfortable with what's going on, who are the parties, et cetera. Is that a strength of yours or something we're still working on?
Actually, something that I'm working on because I'm LLM student, a graduate foreign lawyer. Definitely, it's more difficult for me than American students. I mean, native student. But definitely, yes, reading comprehension is sometimes some vague or ambitious, vague. parts that maybe I need to read one more time, or when
Yes.
I start from the questions, then back to the part that this question is related to that part of the paragraph of the essay, I need to read 2 or 3 times. But
Yeah.
definitely the concept that I receive from the rule that I know, the fact, definitely I can handle it even as for
Okay.
a lawyer.
So, so it sounds like between right the foreign status and just the complexity of the problem, that reading comprehension is something that we want to find ways to improve on. I want to speak to also the non-LLM students, right? Because we have a lot of American students went to American law school that also struggle with reading comprehension. This is something that I deal with on a daily basis, both on the law school side and the bar prep side. And the first thing I want to say before we get started with this, everybody, is you cannot analyze well if you don't know what's going on. And so oftentimes students are so antsy to start analyzing, so antsy to get to the outcome, you're reading too fast. And you don't necessarily have a high standard of reading comprehension for yourself. And what I mean by that is if you ever read a sentence, but that sentence didn't stick or something in that sentence didn't make sense to you, a lot of times we will still just continue to read on. You have to have a higher standard of reading comprehension where it's like, if I need to read a sentence twice just for it to stick, or I just didn't quite get that, reread that immediately, right? But again, sometimes we'll just keep pushing along because we just want to get to writing. So that's what we're going to start off first here with is just reading this question, right? And again, UBE California, everybody should be able to process this criminal procedure question. Here we go. First thing I like to do is scan the call of the question, right? What arguments may Rob reasonably raise in support of his motions? What arguments may the prosecution reasonably raise in response? All right, so we have Rob bringing in the motions and we have prosecution. So that's already telling me, even if I didn't tell us this was criminal procedure, I already know we're in some type of criminal law context, right? Criminal court, because we have prosecution. So this is not a civil case. And it says, what is likely the outcome? And then as soon as I see Rob's statement, yes, it was me. Rob's statement that he had left the money in his apartment, the gun, the stolen money. We should have done enough practice, right? Which is a big key of our bar prep. You got to do so much practice that like you can kind of get the sense for a lot of things quickly. And so as soon as you see physical items and statements at play, this is tipping you off that this is a criminal procedure question. All right. So then we're going to go up to the top. A man carrying a blue briefcase robbed a bank, and then it's going to call that bank, while brandishing a gun. All right. Joe, what crime are we already just kind of jotting down that this person has likely committed?
I'm thinking right away robbery, and then brandishing the gun, assault or threats.
Good. Yeah, robbery, armed robbery, okay, etc. But we just have that just floating in the background. We know this is criminal procedure, but we're just putting some, again, summaries. That's more reading comprehension than anything else. So we have a robbery. All right. The bank teller informed the police that she recognized Rob, a bank customer, as the robber. All right. In the world of criminal procedure, right, this should be registering to us as what? Any volunteers? Something like this typically triggers a discussion of what topic in Crim Pro? Okay. That's going to be tips, right? They received a tip. So we have some information coming from the police, like this informing, right? We can kind of consider that something in the realms of a tip, possibly. 15 minutes later, Officer Otto, who was in uniform and armed. Okay, so we always want to look out for things they're specific about. So this person is uniformed and armed. That was very specific. Saw Rob sitting alone in a restaurant 2 blocks away from the bank. Next to him on the floor was a blue briefcase. Officer Otto ordered Rob to stay right there, right where you are, and keep your hands where I can see them. Okay, so let's pause there for a second. In the world of criminal procedure, how about Rebecca? Rebecca, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
So in the world of criminal procedure, Rebecca, does anything come to mind when you see that? Stay right where you are and keep your hands where I can see them.
Arrest.
Okay, so we're looking at, well, are they under arrest?
Well, no, but I can't
Mhm.
think of the word right now, but
All good. So this is going to be a little bit before arrest and arguably a seizure,
yeah.
right? Where a seizure is the idea of it's some type of conduct where the person does not feel as though they can leave. And so, okay, so I'm jotting down that note as I'm reading this. Officer Otto asks Rob whether he was the robber. So now we have officer questioning. So these are literally like, if you're writing, like you should be taking notes as we're going through this and just jotting down things. It was like, okay, we had an order to stay where they are, seizure, question mark. We have a questioning by officer. Rob responded, yes, it was me. Okay, Joe, what can we summarize that as? Rob responded, yes, it was me.
Whether that's a waiver of Miranda is what I'm thinking.
And before we get into like the legal effect, just summarizing from a reading
Oh, it's
comprehension
a confession.
perspective. Exactly. We have a statement and then we have a confession, right? Which is typically what we're trying to exclude. And guess what? Remember down here, yep, that's the confession that we're trying to exclude. Officer Otto opened the briefcase and discovered a gun. So now we have a search of an item. So like, let's just pause here for a second, right? Like we haven't even made it through this paragraph and look how jam-packed it is with all these just like individual incidents and actions that we have to analyze. Again, the importance of reading comp. All right, so we have a search of a briefcase and then discovered a gun. We can guess that they're going to take the gun. He told Rob he was under arrest for the bank robbery, so he arrested the person now. So now we have an arrest to analyze, handcuffed him and took him to the police station. There, the briefcase and the gun were inventoried and booked into evidence, right? So we have seizure of the briefcase and the gun. All right, again, a lot. Next thing about reading comprehension. A lot of us, right? Our brain, this is going to now be a little bit of the strategy that I want you all to start to focus on, right? When you read a question, our brains, for a lot of us, naturally go to finding the outcome, finding the solution, finding the answer. We see some potential Miranda issues, Fourth Amendment issues in paragraph 1, but you cannot start to do the analysis there. You have to simply jot down the potential issues and stay in the mindset of spotting the remainder. Okay. If you focus too much on trying to solve things, you're not going to have a mind that can catch the additional issues. All right. So then we have 2 hours later, Officer Otto interviewed Rob at the station and properly advised him of his Miranda rights. All right. So we have some time, right? We want to note that this was 2 hours later. It's not a insignificant amount of time, but it's also not a significant amount of time. We'll see if that ends up being a factor. He interviewed Rob at the station and properly advised him of his Miranda rights. We don't really quite know that. What's pretty odd about that is like he interviewed Rob. Like, what's the interview after you've been arrested and taken to the police station? So that's a little vague and unclear, but there's no detail about it. So we'll just kind of put a little underline there and see if that's comes into play. After Rob affirmatively waived his rights, so now we have a waiver of rights, not one that we have to really analyze. We always want to look out for when a fact pattern does the analysis for us. And here it did. Officer Otto asked him about the stolen money, and Rob responded that he had left it in his apartment. Okay, so now we have a statement after questioning, and then another statement. Officer Otto then put this information into an affidavit for a search warrant. Okay, now we have a search warrant in application. After the judge signed the warrant, so we don't have much more after that, just that the judge, in fact, granted it. The officers went there where he lived alone and seized the stolen money. So now we have a search of Rob's home and a seizure of the money. Prior to his trial for bank robbery, Rob brought motions to suppress the statements under the Fifth Amendment and to exclude the gun and money under the Fourth and Fifth Amendments. Okay, this is a really important, right? Whenever they give us some limiting instructions, some limiting facts, or some direction on what to do, we have to take that into heavy consideration. So it says here that we're going to talk about for the statements, the Fifth Amendment, which was more or less pretty clear, but just the Fifth Amendment. And then for the gun and the money, right? We want to discuss the Fourth and Fifth Amendments for the gun and the money. So I think what's very intentional about this is that, again, the Fourth was clear to talk about the gun and the money, but the Fifth being added in there is important. Then we're left with what arguments may Rob reasonably bring in support? What can the prosecution raise in response? And what is the likely outcome? All right. So pausing there for a second, let me go back to Rebecca. Rebecca, what is your initial impression of this fact pattern as far as just like what's going on? Does it feel a little daunting? Is it like, oh no, this was pretty easy to comprehend and determine your next steps? Like, yeah, what's the initial response?
It feels like there's a lot going on. And, we have two amendments here as well. And the prompt is asking to argue both sides. So in my mind, I'm just thinking, how to set it up, like what would be the best way to set it up.
Yes. All right. So now here's the opportunity, Rebecca, for me to again give you guys a little taste of what it's like inside Legally Fit on how we approach this. I preface this with our whole strategy is that you have to control questions, right? You don't let questions control you. And the reality is that there's a formulaic way to do this, right? Going through law is a lot like going through math, right? There's a particular outcome you need to get to, but it's all about showing your work. And there are steps to take, right? There's a system, right? A strategy, a formula, as opposed to just like feeling it out and seeing what comes to you and just flowing with it. A lot of us are in that space when it comes to the bar exam, and it's much easier to, right, get chewed up by that question. So before we get into like actually organizing an outline, I want to talk about the different types of bar exam essay questions out there. Okay. There's three different types of essays. There are racehorse exams, which are scenarios where you have a ton of issues to discuss. They're typically all slam dunk issues. And you're just racing the clock more than ever to just get it all down. Okay, that's racehorse. Next is you have a organization puzzle. Organization puzzle is when you have a unique assortment of facts, maybe something that's not so common, something where you have a lot of parties at play, a lot of moving parts going on, and you have to take a second to figure out, how am I going to organize this? What's all at play, right? Like you have to sit with it a little longer to strategize and figure out all of what's going on and the most efficient a way to attack it. And then lastly, you have in-depth analysis. In-depth analysis is for essays where there's very, very few things to talk about, right? Sometimes it could just be one big issue to discuss or two. And in those situations, you're diving a little deeper into the analysis and reaching for counter arguments and things like that. So with all that said, let me ask Terry. Terry, what type of essay do you think this is? Do you think this is a racehorse, an organization puzzle, or do you think this is a in-depth analysis? Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear
Now
me?
I can. Yep.
Okay, I think it might be an in-depth.
Okay, we're going with in-depth. I'm going to lean, Terry, on this one a little bit more towards organization puzzle. And the reality is that like after having done at this point hundreds of Crim Pro questions, this one's definitely a little unique, and we just have a lot of going on. We have a lot of facts of what took place before, at the scene of the crime, or essentially at the restaurant right after it. We have then some stuff that took place, at the police station. We have a mixture of statements and physical evidence, and like there's just a lot going on that it feels as though I need to, before I even start writing, do a lot to get grounded. So I'm going to lean towards that. I do think, and we'll see, that some of the analysis thereafter should be pretty straightforward. So let's lean with organization puzzle, and let's start to break this down. I'm going to create a Word document now, and we can start to do this together. Okay. So word. Right. I'm gonna also show you guys some of our legally fit materials and how it can be a powerful tool to help with issue spotting. It's called our folder system. All right. And perfect. All right, stop sharing, share entire desktop. Okay. All right, so let's first off go ahead and organize our discussion based off of the call of the question. So we have number one, we have our statement that yes, it was me. Next, we have ours statement that he had left the stolen money in his apartment. Then we have the gun. Then we have the stolen money. Okay. Now, the next thing that we have to do with all these facts going on is I want to go ahead and get, and which is actually going to probably lend to our analysis as well. I got to get all the things that led to those particular pieces of evidence, right? So let's first start off with our statement of yes, it was me. All right. Let me go back to, let's see if we can go to Rebecca. Let's go back to Rebecca. Rebecca, for the yes, it was me. What was the conduct that led to the statement, yes, it was me?
That was when the officer asked him to stay where he was.
Okay, so first it was O's order to stay where you are. Then, and then that's going to be said, going to be knowing the rules, a potential seizure, right? / stop. Then after that, what else did we have?
He told him to keep his hands up where he can see them.
Yeah, we'll consider that. That's all part of that order.
Yeah.
Stay where you are.
And then
Keep
he
your hands
asked
up.
if he was the robber.
All right. Then we have O's question, which is then, possibly what? An interrogation.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna go interrogation / questioning. Okay. And then what happened?
So he answered and said it was him.
Perfect. Then we have the statement. So now we have everything that led up to that. Awesome job. Let's keep it going, Rebecca. Next, we have number two, our statement that he had left the stolen money in his apartment. All right. So that came down all the way down here. Okay. So yeah, all the things that took place. You did a good job. Start from the beginning. Let's go through it.
Okay. So he was asked about the stolen money. So first, do you want to start with the waiver of rights or just go into the statement?
Well, no, we have to do everything that more or less was specific that led to that statement.
Okay. So Officer O interviewed Rob at the station.
Okay. I think it'd be for statements, as we know too with the rule. I think it'd be good to know that at this point he was arrested.
Yes.
So arrested and taken to station. Okay.
Mhm.
Next.
And at the station, the briefcase and the gun were taken into evidence.
Okay. And we can leave that part out. That probably won't be as
Okay.
relevant to this.
Okay. So the officer interviewed Rob at the station. and advised him of his Miranda rights, which he waived.
Okay, so we want to go definitely with read are his Miranda rights. That's always important to note.
I have a
You-
question.
We're gonna go with interviewed question mark because we don't know what to do with that.
Right.
Mhm.
That was the question I had because it's not, the timeline is not clear. Like, did the interview happen before the Miranda rights were read or after?
Yeah, I think everything around the interview is a little unclear, right? Like I don't have the answer to that either. I don't know what the interview is, when exactly it happened. And when you have that, Rebecca, you just kind of work with the gray, you know? And so like if you have a structure with your rules, right? The idea is that maybe at some point there might be a relevancy to talk about that. And then you can just assess and discuss the vagueness around it. And like if the interview happened before, this would happen, right? Like you meet that fork in the road and you have to just discuss both options. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
So Rebecca, like, and everybody, that happens a lot of times on the bar question where sometimes, right, there's something that's vague and unclear. And instead of being confused about it, instead of being it causing anxiety on what to do, you just simply say, all right, like once I get to the relevancy of this, it's not clear. So I just have to discuss, you know, some of the options based off of, you know, reasonableness. So yes, that's how we'll handle that. But I don't even know if the interview will actually necessarily end up coming up because it's nothing from that interview is ultimately what we're trying to exclude. So it looks like that'll probably be irrelevant.
Okay.
All right. So we have read his rights and interviewed. And then waived his rights, or waived his rights. And they made that very conclusory. Back to that question about is this like an in-depth analysis? And I was saying some of the stuff seems straightforward. Like this, like it's very odd that they'll just straight up tell us, oh, he waived his rights. Usually you have to interpret their conduct to see if they effectively waived. Here, they're just straight out telling us he waived his rights. All right, slam dunk analysis. Okay. And then what happened after that, Rebecca?
The officer asked him about the stolen money, and he said he left it in his apartment.
All right. Oh, question R about money. And then lastly, we have R making statement about money. There we go. And we have now done everything that has led up to the taking of that. All right. Then we have the gun. All right. So, and look how we're having to jump around a little bit, right? Because the gun is now back up to the top. All right. And so let's run through this. So again, we have man carrying a briefcase. Let's kind of even work backwards, right? So there was a briefcase. Okay, so it was taken, it was okay. So we have seizure of gun that took place. Before the seizure of the gun, right before that, we had the arrest, or so actually was the search of briefcase. Oh no, that came after.
Yeah, he was under arrest, and then the briefcase was inventory.
Exactly. And that can make a world of a difference, right? So good. Arrest of R. So we have he opened the briefcase, discovered the gun, then he was under arrest, handcuffed him, right? Okay, good. So what took place before anything relevant that took place before the search of the briefcase? We have basically the stopping slash, you know, seizure of R, right? When it's like, don't move, that whole thing can come back up. Then we have the questioning. You could just put that together, I think, plus questioning. Okay. Then he asked him, yes, it was me. Then he opened the briefcase and discovered the gun. All right. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Good. So now we have the gun and then the stolen money.
Sorry, do we need to discuss the fact that when he robbed the bank, he was brandishing the gun or no? Like during the actual robbery?
That might be relevant, but for what we're doing right here, we're talking more so talking about like the officer conduct. that led to the particular evidence that we're dealing with. So it wouldn't be relevant to this timeline we're building, but I'm sure that'll be ultimately something we include in our discussion.
Okay.
All right, so then we have our stolen money, okay? So the stolen money was all regarding the statement made at the station. So again, we have the arrest, we have the Miranda rights plus waiver. We had the statement. We had, after the statement, a search warrant for R's home. Then we had a search of R's home. And then we had a seizure of the money. And there we go. All right. So that's just even now step one. But even before we move to the next step, I'm curious, Rebecca, can we already kind of start to feel already like we're like taking more control of the question and it's starting to like become more manageable?
Yes.
Yeah. So the goal is, again, is like you have to take these additional steps, right? For those that are just like, they read it the first time, and let's say 10 minutes ago, before we even did all of this, they just jumped into the first one, Rob's statement, and let's start analyzing. You are missing out on this part that can set your answer up for a more accurate discussion. So these are the type of steps that you take. All right. So this is a little bit of a factual kind of breakdown. Again, it's going to be helpful, but we still have to spot like the actual issues. So I'm going to copy this. Should have copied it before, but it's all good. We're going to copy this for now and then paste it. Renumber. Let's get rid of the detail. And so it said earlier that for the statement, Rob brought motions to suppress his statements under the Fifth Amendment. So we're going to talk about Fifth Amendment here. We need to talk about, and Fifth Amendment here. And then for the gun and the money, it says the Fourth and Fifth Amendment. Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment. Fourth Amendment. Fifth Amendment. So this is already telling me, back to that statement earlier, this is likely not going to be an in-depth analysis just because of like, there's so much, there's actually a decent amount to talk about. So this is kind of leaning more towards organization puzzle mixed with maybe a tad bit of racehorse, but I still think mostly organization puzzle. All right, now, the next thing that we're simply going to do that we have a good grasp on this fact pattern, we're going to use our folder system to help us just simply walk through this. All right, so here's the legally fit folder system for CrimPro. I call it like the Russian nesting dolls, right? Where the entire class will fit into a very, very easy to see big picture. So your first level for criminal procedure is just this: the exclusionary rule, 4th, 5th, 6th, and other amendments. And then you can dive into deeper anything that you want. So let's go to our second level and look at our second level for Fifth Amendment. And let's go one at a time here. So we're going to focus on the yes, it was me statement. Rebecca, at this point, I know I can count on you. So I think I'll just do most of the rest of the session with you.
1 hour right now on call. Okay.
So here we go. So you're doing great, though. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right. So for the Fifth Amendment, we have due process, Miranda, and double jeopardy. Which one can we just quickly rule out as a discussion here?
It's not double jeopardy for sure.
Good. It's definitely not double jeopardy. All right. We have left due process and Miranda. What is due process about and what is Miranda about? Do you recall?
Miranda has to do with reading the rights to the person and the fact that the fact that he affirmatively waived it. So it means they've fulfilled Miranda, assuming that it was done.
Oh, Don't mix up things though, right? Because and right now, look, you're doing more than what I asked you to do. You're analyzing and doing other steps. I just said, what is it about? But you're also mixing things up because remember, yes, it was me, was before any waiver that took place down here.
Correct. That is correct.
Yes, right. So we got to slow down, make sure we're catching all that. So, but yes, Miranda, everybody, is about preventing police coercion to get statements. And so we have this protection called Miranda rights, where yes, if it's a custodial interrogation, you have to first Mirandize, right? And then there's like a whole bunch of rules and framework within it. But it's about reading your Miranda rights when you are exposed to a custodial interrogation. So the first thing we can consider right there is it debatable, arguable? Is it worth enough of a discussion, Rebecca, to say that there was a custodial interrogation at the time of this statement?
The first statement, yes, because the officer actually used the word arrest. So the custody doesn't necessarily have to be at the station.
Did he use the word arrest before the statement?
Sorry, let me look at it again. Stay right where you are. Keep your hands.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he asked whether he was the robber.
Okay, but we're switching. See, so again, Rebecca, like this is what we're saying of like it's just so easy to just like mix up the facts, move too fast. But yeah, at this point, we had no arrest, no station, etc. We have stay right where you are, keep your hands up, and then we have the question of whether you're the robber. So my question to you is it debatable as to whether this is a custodial interrogation?
It is debatable, I think.
Yes, I definitely think so. It's not a slam dunk. Like the best form of custody is you are arrested. We don't have that, but I still think the whole stay right where you are. And what other important fact can kind of help with the fact that this was considered custody, right? We said that this was like a very specific fact that they included that you can kind of add to your analysis to get those points. Are you remembering what we had said was something very specific and like, oh, I wonder how that's going to be important? How about the fact that he was uniformed and armed, right? So you have an armed, uniformed police officer coming to you and saying, stay right where you are, keep your hands where I can see them. A person probably doesn't feel like they can leave. So yeah, that's probably going to be custody, even though it wasn't a traditional arrest. So again, let's not get too deep into the analysis, the detail, but yes, we're going to go ahead and put down, we're going to discuss Miranda under the Fifth Amendment. Now, there's only one other option, and that's due process for Fifth Amendment. Due process is about statements not being voluntary, right? That they were coerced. Do you think that we have grounds to discuss coercion here as well?
I think it's kind of gray. I mean, yeah, that's a tough one. I would lean towards a no.
I'm going to lean towards a yes. And the reason why, Rebecca, is that like we've seen examples of due process where there's just like that intimidation nature and just like, and this is part of like where you have to humanize yourself with the facts a little bit and just kind of get the intensity that's behind this whole situation, right? Of the like uniformed and armed and this like very aggressive statement of keep your hands where I can see them. Like it almost feels like it's like, oh, what's going on? And so not that this is going to for sure be a violation of due process. The other thing is that if you then know your rules, it's like due process is not necessarily a very webbed or long framework. So it's something that we can possibly just do a brief discussion on. So I think just to cover my basis, I'm going to put it down and then I'll assess how much I discuss it later. But I'm not thinking I'll spend a lot of time there, but better to cover my basis than to miss out on points.
Yeah.
All right, so there we go. Before we move on, I want to just talk about again, Rebecca, this power within this strategy. Like we're going through Crim Pro and having fun with learning the law and going through this essay, but the real takeaway from today's session, everybody, is like how we're going through it. And so look how issue spotting becomes, Rebecca. It wasn't just like, oh, what do you think is triggered for our statement? No, it is a structured, formulaic approach of like, all right, Fifth Amendment, what are my options? Okay, due process, Miranda. Okay, double jeopardy out. Okay, Miranda. Oh, yes. So you want to issue spot everybody in a checklist manner because that's how you ensure that you are talking about the right things, because you are then susceptible to just like brain farts and things just like not coming to you in the moment. If you use just a method of like what's popping out to you. So here we go. Like, we'll talk about how we'll even go further, but for now, let's move on to our statement. And we're going to do the same thing because it's Fifth Amendment again. So this is that he had left the stolen money in the apartment. Rob responded that he had left it in his apartment. So let's go back up to this. So we had the arrest, taken to the station. Yep, read his rights, interviewed, waived his rights. O question R about the money. All right, and then made the statement. So we're going to still discuss Miranda. Rebecca, is this probably going to be a long analysis on Miranda here?
No.
Yeah, probably quick considering the whole waiver discussion. We can also bring up due process again, and it might not be an issue under the circumstances, but we could just touch on it. And again, no double jeopardy. Okay, so looks like we'll be doing this whole one analysis pretty quickly. All right, so then now we're getting to the gun. All right, and let's look at our folder system. We're getting to the gun, and the first thing is the Fourth Amendment. The first thing we have for Fourth Amendment is GSR. Now, this is not like Fifth Amendment, right? These are different concepts. GSR is actually the framework of a Fourth Amendment discussion. So I'm going to immediately just write down government action, standing, and reasonableness for each of these. All right. Rebecca, can we easily check off government action for both the gun and the stolen money?
Yes, because the officer was clothes and
Yeah. Officer, yes. Slam dunk. All right. And that's for both. Everything was committed by officers, Officer Otto. All right. Next, standing, right? Standing, right, is the defendant must have standing to bring a Fourth Amendment claim. You have standing if there was a search or seizure, right, that you were subject to. And the goal is for the defendant to lay out all the searches and seizures that led to the taking of that evidence, right? So again, this is some of the hard work we've already done. So let's go to the gun. The first thing, let's just copy and paste this, right? We have all these things that were the searches and seizures. All right. And then what we have to do is talk about the reasonableness of all of these. Okay. We have to talk about the reasonableness of all of these. Now, the question is, right, do we remember, Rebecca, what are the ways that a search or seizure can be reasonable? There's two ways. There's either a blank or a blank.
oh, I don't remember, but I'm thinking a warrant.
Yes. There's either a warrant or there is an exception to the warrant requirement that applies. So you have to have a warrant or a warrant exception. So for all of these, that's what then we have to go through. So the first thing that you kind of want to just quickly analyze is, because it's either there or not, or the possibility or not, is like, did we have a warrant for this? Was there anything that we had as far as a warrant for the gun?
No, but
Good.
reasonable.
Nope.
Oh,
Nope.
sorry.
Yeah, so stop right there first, right? Like, no, yeah, just no, right? So nothing for the gun regarding a warrant. The warrant was only for the house that then led to the money. So we then just want to discuss exceptions for all of these. Now let's talk about now some issue spotting, right? We're going to go back to our folder system. We're going to go deeper into Fourth Amendment. Let's go to our fourth level. See if then we have the exceptions. Yes, we do. So reasonableness. Okay, zoom in a little bit. You have your warrant requirement and you have your warrant exceptions. Your mnemonic is space TP, and that's search incident to the lawful arrest, automobile, plain view, consent, exigency, Terry, and patent doctrine. We need to know, obviously, these pretty well to quickly issue spot, but let's run through these together. The first one we had was stopping and the seizure of R, right? The questioning. That arguably is going to be a seizure. When we get to the reasonableness, is there anything that we can say as far as an exception that we would talk about here? Okay. Rebecca, let's run through it quickly. Is it going to be search incident to a lawful arrest?
Yes.
No. Was that person arrested at that time?
Oh, no, sorry.
Exactly. Nope, no arrest. All right. Is this going to be the automobile exception?
No.
Plain view?
No, that's usually in the house, isn't it? That applies.
Plain view is for taking something. Plain view is never a reason to stop somebody. So, yep, that's not from that perspective. All right. Consent.
Looking at the timeline again, he had not consented at that point.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that like if consent when it comes to a seizure kind of happens immediately. So I think that's maybe worth just a little quick discussion. Like, probably still not going to be the case, but like, okay, I don't mind throwing that down as a possibility. How about exigency?
Um, I want to say yes, but I've
Okay.
really seen that in homes technically, so I don't know if, I guess it should work with this fact pattern as well.
Yeah, I don't think exigency is a good idea here, and only because of knowing the rule well, and that exigency is typically used for reasons to search people. I still think maybe, again, a quick raise and dismiss, but this is not a true application of it. Exigency is like, oh, you knock on the door and you hear them flushing the toilets, and you thought this was a drug bust. It's like, oh, exigency, got to enter the house. Or you hear somebody screaming in a house that's like being hurt, you got to enter exigency. The bank robber who runs to their home and enters their home, well, exigency, like the hot pursuit. But you don't necessarily use exigency to stop somebody. So like you could talk about it, but you at least need to identify this is not the traditional application.
Yeah.
All right, next is Terry. What about Terry stop?
That sounds more familiar. That sounds more applicable, rather.
Yeah, right. Terry stop is the one that's about if you have reasonable suspicion that criminal activity is afoot, you are allowed to stop and briefly question. Does that seem to be like probably the best one here?
I think so.
Yeah. So now all of a sudden I'm going to rearrange these, right? Like these now are not that important. Sure, I'll have this like maybe list and maybe I'll talk about consent and exigency. But yeah, Terry is the focus here, especially because it's probably going to be met. And so that's going to be Terry stop. And that's what we're going to use to argue that the stopping of him and the questioning was reasonable. All right. So Terry, stop. Okay. I'm just going to delete those now because, yeah, again, that's going to be just such the thing to discuss. All right. So then that justifies arguably the Terry stop. Then you have the search of the briefcase. First thing you want to think about is Terry frisk, because it comes naturally, typically after a Terry stop. So maybe we can talk about that. But what's kind of the, again, like difference about the normal application of Terry frisk here, Rebecca?
You actually touch the person's body. It's
Yeah, Terry
more,
frisk is when you like they're armed and dangerous, or there's suspicion that they're armed and dangerous, and then that you search their body. This is still grounds to talk about it. Like there is suspicion of them being armed and dangerous. This was a armed robbery. He was brandishing a gun, right? You could talk about these different things. But yeah, Terry frisk is typically for a light pat down of the outer clothing. And here, this was an opening up of the briefcase. So we're going to talk about it, but probably not going to be the case. Back to our list. Can we use Sila? Very easy answer. Read the fact pattern to remember the order of operation.
I don't think they had arrested him then.
Exactly. So we still can't use Sila. Sila is for things that happen after the arrest. So there was no arrest. So we can't use Sila. We can't use automobile. We can't use plain view because he had to open up. There was nothing immediately apparent as contraband about the briefcase. And plain view doesn't necessarily allow you to open up anything. Consent. There was definitely no consent to looking at the briefcase. There's no sense of exigency at this point. So yeah, and the patent doctrine is not applicable here. So we might have an issue here. The best is Terry Frisk, but that likely is not going to work. All right. And then we had the arrest of R. And so an arrest is lawful if they have probable cause that they've committed a crime and they're in public. Would you say that this is met?
Yeah.
Yeah, likely lawful. And then they had a seizure of the gun. This seizure of the gun, you would, for this one, you would discuss Sila, right? Because now they've been arrested and they seized the gun. However, the issue likely came here, right? And so that's what we'll be discussing. And I think ultimately you're going to have a problem with the gun. Any questions on that, Rebecca?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions? Okay. So let's keep going. Fifth Amendment. So now we have the gun and we have the Fifth Amendment. So what took place before the gun was just a statement of, yes, it was me. So I think this is a pretty quick discussion because nothing about the statement necessarily like led to the search of the briefcase. Other than maybe you saying the confession, but I do want myself to re-look up the rule. Let me find out the criminal procedure. There's a rule at the end of Fifth Amendment, and it talks about this exact scenario of other related rules. You can use it for impeachment. If police unintentionally fail to give warnings and an unrecognized confession leads to physical evidence, then that physical evidence is admissible. Okay. So I think I'll just bring this up that this was an unintentional failure to give warnings, and that confession led to the physical evidence of the gun in the briefcase, etc. So I think that's the only relevance here. I'm not seeing otherwise a big analysis for Fifth Amendment connection. Right? It's very, I would say, even a little bit more so to discuss for the stolen money, because the statement was so connected to them getting the warrant and then going to the house where they told them where the money was. All right, so next we have the stolen money. Let's start to wrap this issue spotting up. We have the stolen money. We have all of these things that took place. And that's going to go again, understanding. All right. And then we have to discuss the reasonableness. And again, for the arrest, we already said that that was likely going to be lawful. All right, at that point, we have Miranda rights and a waiver. We don't need to discuss that part under Fourth Amendment. All right, then we have the statement. We don't need to discuss that part. Then we have the search warrant for R's home. That's not going to be standing. That's just going to be reasonableness. So then we have the search of R's home, and then the search warrant goes under there. And then we have seizure of the money, which just depends on everything else above. So that's pretty much all you have to discuss for Fourth Amendment for the stolen money is the search of R's home, which is then going to be based on the search warrant. You have your elements for a valid search warrant. It's right here. Boom. So you're going to talk about probable cause, particularity, neutral and detached magistrate, and properly executed. Okay. That's our outline for Fourth Amendment. And then for Fifth Amendment for the stolen money, that was where we had those other issues that we got rid of, where we'd be talking about the Miranda rights and waiver and the statement. Because all of this led to the warrant and search of apartment. All right. And that is our outline. So again, Rebecca, everybody, we'll pause here on this essay. I think this was a great demonstration of the way that you want to, with intention, with structure, take control of the question and go about it in a formulaic way. You realize that like there wasn't much opportunity for us to be confused or kind of figure out what we're going to do. There was a system here. It was, all right, we're strong reading comprehension and start off with structuring our analysis based off of the direction given to us. From there, use my folder system, use my big picture understanding of the law to spot certain issues and talk about them in a logical way. Now, the only thing that's left to do is go through all the issues and do all of our IRACs. But we have a clean roadmap for what we need to discuss to perform well on this essay. As we wrap up, and I'll open it up to questions. Everybody, this is what being successful on the bar exam looks like. You have to understand the law so well and have practiced your skills, essay, multiple choice, so much that this stuff comes second nature by the day of the exam. So you need to do ample practice and ample time invested in understanding the law. I'll pause to see if there are any questions. And then if not, I'll share with you all just a little bit of the information that I shared yesterday on the Legally Fit programs. Ours start next week is orientation. So I'll give you guys some information on that. But yeah, do I have any questions regarding this essay or just essay writing in general and how we can improve?
Do you have a model answer for this exercise?
No, I do not have a model answer for this exercise. This exercise, and I don't mind just sharing into the chat this Word document that I just created on the spot, but this essay, there is no sample answer for it. I haven't created one myself. I typically wait for the bar to release sample answers and then go from there. But yes, I will give you this mock-up, outline, mock-up, Prem Pro, Feb 2025. And we put it in the chat. Who put in the chat? Stop and frisky. Who's getting frisky? I know you meant stop and frisk. Right. Put this in the chat. Boom, that's in there. Joe, question.
Yeah, about how much time do you want to on a UBE essay, let's say, do you want to spend kind of making an outline before you get down to actually putting words on the paper?
Great question. So the reality is that the difference for UBE exams is that your essays aren't necessarily always significantly shorter. Like, what would you say is the average from your experience on the previous bar of how long your fact pattern is?
I've never taken it before. I'm a first timer.
Oh, you're coming from the first time. Got it.
Yeah.
So yeah, for UBE, you still get about a quarter of a page, a half of a page, right? Which is very similar to what we have here. The reality is, in my opinion, it's the same amount of time that you want to spend here for reading and briefing, which is about 15 minutes, which I know is half your time. But the reality is that for UBE exams, the way that it's different is not that you read it any faster, it's that there's just way less issues to discuss. So it's all about then just like, you really just want to beeline it to the, like, I always call it like, what's the log that's blocking the river, right? Like, what's the main issue at play? Like, it's not so much, you know, how we were saying here, Joe, like, oh, maybe we could consider consent and maybe we can consider this as well. Like for UBE, it's just like straight to the main one that's at play. So that's where you make up time, is in your writing. You just get straight to it. But you still, in my opinion, want to use anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes in that reading and briefing phase.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So before I let you guys go, if there's no other questions, I'll give you guys some quick information on the Legally Fit Bar Prep that starts next week. Okay. Let me go ahead and screen share that for you. There it is. Okay. And actually, I'll go a few slides back. Yeah. To this, and I'll just run through this quickly again. We did this session yesterday, so if you ever want to go and look at any of the detail here, what makes Legally Fit different? It's our materials, specifically our engaging lectures that are going to really break down the law well, consistency, and customization with how you learn. We have materials for every learning style. As you can see here, there's a lot of strategy that goes into bar prep. We have formulas and strategies for every portion of the exam. We have a schedule that allows you to deep dive in particular topics, as opposed to it's more normal of other big box companies that you're constantly juggling, which to me avoids or prevents the ability to really take deep dives into particular topics. We have a walk before you run approach that's best for progressional development. And simply follow the recipe, right? Our mantra at this point of Legally Fit Bar Prep is that it's not rocket science, right? This bar exam is extremely hard. There's a lot that goes into it. But as we saw today going through this essay, it's not that it's hard. It's just a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of skill, practice, and experience to walk through that Crim Pro essay as we just did, where it's like, hey, there's light at the end of the tunnel. It wasn't as bad as it looked. You simply had to process the facts and follow your steps to spot the issues and then get into your discussion. So we give you the steps on how you can get to that point that you just saw me illustrate. And then lastly, we have support. You know, a lot of times with bar prep companies, you're simply given your books and told good luck, you know, see you never. With Legally Fit, depending on which program you choose, we have live workshops 2 to 4 times a week where we do things just like what we did. So you're not just left to figure out all the stuff on your own, but you're going through live exercises to get immediate feedback on how you're doing with reading comprehension, with analysis, with process of elimination, multiple choice, right? Things like that. There's office hours, ability to connect with other students. Yes, it is not an isolating experience when you take bar prep with us. The Legally Fit experience, if you are interested in booking a consultation call, you can book one 15 minutes to ask any questions that you may have regarding our services to see if Legally Fit's a good fit for you. You can, if you are a repeater, also purchase an hour session where I help you make a custom schedule. But other than that, our orientation starts next week. We have taken orientation and put it into its own week. So that way, when bar prep starts on May 19th, you are ready to hit the ground running. On May 19th is when your 10 weeks start, right? That's the bottom phase. You have 7 weeks of learning the law, a week of assessing and strategizing and see how much progress you've made. And based off of that, you make a custom, and we help you make a custom attack plan that you then carry out for the last 2 weeks that takes you into the exam. All right, here are your dates and deadlines for signing up. Okay, again, first day of orientation next Monday. It would be ideal to sign up this week so we can get you processed, get you in the system, and ready to go for Monday. Okay, first day of bar prep is the following Monday, May 19th. Our options, this is our base program. This does not come with the live workshops, but it gives you everything you need to pass, right? This is going to give you our amazing materials for all 13 subjects. It's going to give you strategy and practice for essay, MBE, and PT, a full bar prep schedule that tells you what to do every day, every minute, every hour. And you also have email, Q&A support, essay grading, performance tracking. Now, our Bar Prep Plus is our premier option, right? That most of our students sign up for. Both are really good, but this is the one that comes with the live workshops 2 to 4 times a week. It also comes with office hours where you again get an opportunity to ask questions and get some further assistance. There's much more accountability, right? That's baked into the Bar Prep Plus. Where being in those live workshops, you're held to a standard of attendance, of participation, right? And things like that. We also have mentally fit forms that are optional, but are spaces to help with the mental challenges that happen during that 10-week course. And we have some additional surprises as well. All right. They're really good surprises, but as I always say, if I told you what they were, it wouldn't be a surprise anymore. The Bar Prep Plus and the Bar Prep prices are listed here: $39.50 for the Plus, $2,200 for the regular. You can also take advantage of this discount. We gave this to the attendees of yesterday's session. So you would have now 1 day to use this if you'd like. And so those would be the discount codes to use. So if you want to act fast, you can get a little bit of money off. And I promise you, everybody, we have not had one student who has made it through Legally Fit Bar Prep and has not thought that it was worth it, that has asked for a refund. You will get every dollar's worth of value in which you spend. In my opinion, the program is worth way more than this. A lot of private tutors and different things out there are charging $8,000, $6,000 and up. Yeah, you're just not going to see the holistic approach that you get with the live workshops and that coaching touch to it combined for this price. So if you're leaning towards it and you're feeling it, I would say pull the trigger. If you're on the fence, again, you can talk to us. And we also even allow you to talk to people who took our program, who are willing to give, their time to have conversations with people because they just believe how good it is and how helpful it can be for you. So here's some QR codes. We'll also send you some emails, but if you want to do a consultation call, you want to sign up, those are the QR codes right there. And yeah, that's your information. Any questions regarding our bar prep before I let you all go for the evening?
What if you have signed up with another company, but you like to do private tutoring? Like, how does that work?
So we don't offer like you being with another company and then doing just private tutoring with us. We have some limited coaching that we might have available throughout bar prep, and we'll be emailing our database to let them know when those hours open. But it's designed for spot help, not necessarily something beforehand that you are getting as something as far as like regular, once a week, twice a week, etc. So yeah, for us, it's that if you were interested, it would be something that you would consider switching programs and joining this. And again, I think the live workshops, Rebecca, are truly a suitable replacement for the private coaching. The students that have made the biggest jumps, we talked about this yesterday. We had a California student who jumped 178 points. That student did not do private coaching. They just did the Bar Prep Plus, attended all the live workshops, put in the work, and made that significant of a jump. So I think you get, for I would say 98% of the people, you'll get the value that you're looking for in private coaching out of the live workshops.
Gotcha.
Awesome. Billy.
Hey, what's up, DeAndre? I
What's
just had
going
a
on?
quick question. You might have already covered this. I'm a repeat taker, and I know last time our profiles were still like up and available to use. I just wanted to confirm that was going to be the case this time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as always, once you sign up with Legally Fit, if you need to reuse your materials, you still have access to that. Once you go through your portal, if there's any issues, of course, just email Monique and she'll get you squared away immediately.
Much appreciated. Also,
Awesome.
I had another 100-point jump as well, so the stuff works, y'all.
There we go. Thank you for sharing that, Billy. And we got to catch up. I want to hear how close we got and what we're going to be doing this next time to get now over the hump. But man, glad to hear 100-point jump. You feeling good about it?
Yeah, definitely. I just checked the score today, so like I was down yesterday and like considering waiting until February of next year, but then I saw the score and was like, all right, we're gonna keep the momentum up.
Good, man. So how many points now do we have left, if you don't mind me asking?
31.
Okay, that's you're right there. All right, good stuff, man. All right. So yeah, I'm sure I'll be seeing you soon. Let me go ahead and stop sharing. All right. Any other questions, everybody? Well, yes. Oh,
Great.
Rebecca.
Actually, I was gonna say thank you so much, but then I guess I have another question. How many essays do people complete like by the end of the course? Like how many are they expected to do weekly?
100 essays is what people will complete if they follow the program. It's designed for you to touch 100 essays. It doesn't mean you're writing out all 100, but you are touching and doing some work on 100 essays.
Gotcha. And are the essays grouped based on the 3 areas you mentioned? Or like how do you know if it's a organization fact pattern
Oh
versus
yeah. So I train basically like a lot of what I do, right, is like I'm training you like that. My program is really built into in-depth training on like showing you what to look for because I can't be there for all 100 essays that you do, right? And also I need you to build the skill set to be able to identify it yourself. So that's a big part of where orientation comes in and then the follow-up live workshops where I teach you how to identify what type of essay that it is, and you start to practice that on your own. And these 3 different types of essays that I'm saying, like, that's not something that's like, provided by the bar, but that's just me realizing after doing so many of them, I decided, like, oh, you know what? Like, I see that there's basically these 3 different types, and there's different strategies then that we have to deploy based off of those 3 types. So that's a complete, like, legally fit perspective on these essays. And so, yeah, I train you on how to identify it as well. Awesome. Okay. So as always, everybody, I hope and wish nothing but the best for everybody, no matter which program they take as you get ready for the July 25 exam or beyond. Of course, if you are ready to sign up for Legally Fit and get this thing done and make that point increase that you're looking to make, we would love to have you and look forward to helping you. We have one more workshop tomorrow for multiple choice. So for those that are interested, feel free to get our last free workshop of the cycle. And if you're interested in signing up, I'll see you in orientation next week. All right, everybody, take care. And I'll stick around I see another hand. I'll stick around for a few more moments.
Hey, I just wanted to see if you could put the consultation QR code back up. I think I took a picture of the wrong one.
Oh yeah, no worries. Yeah, be that bottom one.
Got it. Thanks.
All right, Billy. I'll talk soon. All right, everybody. Have a great night. Also, too, I didn't put just realized I didn't put the QR code. It's in your email, though. The QR code for the assessment and strategy call, which is like an hour-long call if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of just like, again, whether you sign up for our program or not, just setting you up with a custom attack plan with how you should set up your schedule. Okay. So that one's there. But again, it'll all be in the link afterwards. All right, Rebecca, thank you for being our main volunteer today.
Thank you, DeAndre.
Yes, I'm sure that was unexpected. You did awesome, and thanks to everybody else. All right, everybody, have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
All right.